I'm afraid of my browser history coming to slash my throat. That's a lyric, right? This is something one good friend might joke to another. The kind of friend who finds your self-deprecating humor hilarious. It's not the kind of vulnerability easily stuffed into a song. Too easily misinterpreted, maybe, but it lands. When someone cool says something hinting at being uncool, it maybe makes them even more cool. I remember in my mid-20s, I was talking to a large group of people younger than me, big stage, big stakes at that stage of life, and decided to open with the story of my grade 7 walkathon. 10 kilometers into a large loop through the country outside of small town Saskatchewan, where my body betrayed me after only the 4th kilometer and fully pooped my pants. I really thought it would land better than it did. Vulnerability can be a superpower. The secret sauce of confident, bulletproof personalities is to lean into what you aren't. Be as human as possible, maybe, so it can't hold you back. Like in these lyrics. I'm afraid you might get bored of me. I'm afraid of bad sex for 7 years. When life goes by every single day and I can't keep up. The way an artist can inspire and influence us often begins with vulnerability. It draws you in, it disarms you, identifies with your struggles, and helps you to be resilient in the face of difficulty. Like these lyrics. We came too far to be looking back. Take me back to why we started in the first place. When you can't go around, you must go down. These are the lyrics of Danielle McTaggart. Danielle is an artist best known for her role as vocalist, instrumentalist, and songwriter in the Canadian indie alt-rock band she shares with her husband, Dear Rouge. Dear Rouge is a Juno Award-winning band from Vancouver, BC. Top 10 hits on the Canadian alt-rock charts, including 3 number ones. Somehow, the glossy, repetitive, overly digestible formula of radio success wasn't paying attention to the desperately vulnerable grit and grime of finding hope from despair found in Black to Gold. And this story keeps playing out, song after song in the Dear Rouge catalog, and then into Daniela's solo work with Larkk. That's Larkk with 2 Ks. A stripped down, lush, and orchestral take on raw, poetic storytelling. I didn't ask Daniela about her browser history, by the way, but I'm pretty sure it would just make her even more endearing. My name is Glenn Erickson. This is Almost Famous Enough. Thanks for spending your time with us. This is Danielle McTaggart. But thank you, Danielle, for joining me today. It's really nice to meet you.
You too.
Danielle McTaggart, obviously most well-known, one half of Dear Rouge, the singer-songwriter, but now a new project, Larkk with 2 Ks as well. So you have an expanding horizon going on, which is something I really wanted to be able to talk about with you. And a lot of what I talk about on the podcast is just the entire picture of a career of career in music and quote unquote chasing the dream and the different ways that happens and appears for everybody. And I find most interesting the unique transitions, the unique choices, the in-betweens and all those kinds of things. So I think what you've been pursuing is of real interest. But before I get to all of that, I want to go all the way back, because what started it for you in your career, the real kickoff, I think, was, forming Dear Rouge in your career with Drew, and then winning the Peak Performance Project and kind of getting that big bundle of money and really setting you up. So the reason I have to start there is the weird tie-in is I was actually there the night you guys won. At what was it? It wasn't Vogue. What theater was that? Do you remember? The Commodore.
Yeah,
that's
the
right.
Commodore. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was I was the chair of Alberta Music Association
Cool.
at the time, and we had been studying the peak performance for a couple of years just to develop our own development program. And
Mhm.
then Pattison wanted a new station in Calgary to
Mhm.
follow the format of the peak, and they had come to us to partner in the same way that Bob Deeth and Music BC had partnered to create that project. And so we took a little trip down to the finale to meet all the brass and all the people on the board and talk about how to get that started, and got invited to the final show. And I remember probably 4 very distinct things. It was a bit of a blur. One of them was I met a guy named Mike Adele. You know Mike? I
Yeah,
had him on the
I know
podcast.
him.
Yeah. So we became friends through that. We realized we had a whole
Oh.
bunch of mutual friends. I remember that the VIP area I was invited to was full of like the guys in suits from radio. And I have to be a little bit careful because the irony is now my full-time job is with Pattison
Mm.
Media. So I should be a little careful. But I really didn't love the fact that the guys in suits didn't seem to really care that much about the
Oh,
music. I
yeah.
think they had people from sales and all, you know what I mean? The people that aren't
Yeah. Yeah.
so passionate about music or whatever. And then I remember Jordan Clausen, and I remember your guys' performance 100%.
Oh, that's cool. Nice.
So that was real fun. That's kind of where things started for you, like really started. But I'd love to just sort of get a little background conversation first. I know you sometimes have to do this all over the place for people and keep telling the backstory over and over and over again. But I hope that you'll uh, appease me a little bit. So you started in Red Deer, which everybody loves to talk about the fun play on words in the band name that you had made. But I'm actually more entertained by the fact that one of your first names was Gates Avenue.
Well, that's like way, way back.
Way back.
Um, yeah, so I guess my influences in the music world are very small. I didn't there was no even real venue in Red Deer, Alberta at the time. Like when I was growing up, there was this venue called the Vat.
Yep. That was it.
And that meant that was it, and they had, like, Sunday night, open mic nights, and sometimes I would do that, but, like, I was just kind of, like, embedded into, like, a church culture type scenario there, and finding my own way, to music. I always loved music, and I always knew I wanted to do it. There's just, like, nothing there to influence my life. I just kinda had, like, very
Yeah.
small I've actually had to, like, grieve that in a way because it didn't really have any moments. Like, it was by Calgary and Edmonton, but it was always just, like, pop. I think I saw Justin Timberlake one time, and, like, I did get to see Oasis, Ryan Adams. That was pretty cool. But no,
Yeah.
yeah, so I guess that's the reason why I'm bringing that up is because I didn't really have, cool ideas at the time. I just didn't really have any good influences to guide me or, like, to teach me, and so I just kinda was like, "Well, Red Deer is my hometown. I guess it's, like, what I have to be inspired by," and my best friend and I, like, he played piano, I sang, we did church stuff together, so we were just like, "Let's start a band." And then, like,
Yeah.
really weirdly, like, Red Deer just you just are using what's around you to be inspired by, I guess. I've never really thought about it like that, but I think that's why. I just feel like Red Deer kind of, like, became, like, our inspiration, and it's, like, actually quite a beautiful city. I'm saying that like
Yeah.
I'm surprised by it, but it's really like, it's a really good city to grow up in, and so, yeah,
Well, I
but that's,
find
like,
it
way back.
interesting. I mean, I just thought it was interesting because that's like
Yeah,
two
it's another, like,
two
play on
sort of,
words.
yeah, a little play on words
Or not
again, but
play on words, but it's just
was
straight up.
specific. But most
Yeah,
people don't name, like, there's bands that have used like the name of a street as their band name or things like that in the
yeah.
past. But
Well, I live in
it's
Chilliwack
like,
now, and there's literally a band called Chilliwack, so it's like
yeah,
there's,
100%.
people. I guess, that is being a human being, though. You're drawing from your experiences, and yeah, I grew up there, so
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, segue a little bit. So I grew up in church culture too, and I found that moment, that gap of wanting to like branch out.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, the the limitation of influences, as you were calling it, or
Yeah.
ideas or inspirations,
Mhm.
I wonder, I guess maybe I thought I felt that too because I was in a well, for the first half of my life, pretty conservatively restrictive.
Mhm.
It was like I had to, like, I could only own Christian rock
Yeah, that
music, and
was
even some of that was even questionable to my dad,
oh, wow.
you know?
Ooh, wow. That's
So
really conservative, yeah.
well, that because I was a late '80s kid, so it was like metal,
Mm.
it was Striper and all that shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so he didn't know what to make of guys wearing, like, tights and all that stuff, but, I get it. But I found when I was wanting to break out, again, where do you go play? Because there was such a divide, right? This massive divide, and I don't think un non-church people would understand how big that gap felt between, like, church and secular, right? Air quotes, secular.
Yeah. I guess that's
Was that
true, yeah.
did that feel like a big gap for you, or did you have a family that didn't treat that like such a big gap?
I guess so. I think I just was like, this is a place that I don't know, I can be how do you say, like, I would think about it like I'm shining my little light, you know? That's how I saw it
Yeah,
in
yeah.
those, like, places that I wasn't used to, but it did take a bit to I guess that's a good question. I guess that I just kind of, like, started to realize that, like, God was everywhere, in everything, doing rad things everywhere, like, it didn't matter, and I think my conservative upbringing too was, like, he's in these specific places doing specific things, and it's obvious, and I just don't think that's true, and I think music in every sense has, like, a strain of God in it, and those venues and those places are building community. Some of it's not positive, honestly, some of it's, like, ruining people's lives and, like, in terms of, like,
Mhm.
their own choices, like, whatever they're doing with their, uh what's the word I'm looking for? Vices. But I think those places can be so beautiful and rich in like family and heritage and like the vat, like I know it tried to shut down a couple times and people were like, no, like they fought for it because it gave them a sense of community. And I think community is just
Mhm.
everywhere and the music community is everywhere. So I think I just took me a long time to learn that like just because it's labeled something doesn't mean it is or it isn't. I mean,
Mm.
so anyways, now I'm like, I've been doing music for like forever, feels like for 15 years. And like
Yeah.
full time, but I always did like when I was 13 I was doing it and writing and that's just kind of what I was doing. But like I've just learned so much like when you listen to like a Pink Floyd record or you listen to a Beatles record or you listen to like these amazing artists expressing themselves, like it's all like holy, if you will. I think it's beautiful. It's like
Hmm.
an expression of the human experience.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. So what was the style? What was the influence on you at that time? Like, kinda pre Dear Rouge, when you were just sort of setting out? Because I read that you kinda, you got into a couple of things with people. You were, like, trying to book your own shows and make things
Mhm.
happen for yourself. What was the influence? Where were you headed with your own music at that time?
Like when I was like in Red Deer.
Yeah.
Um, well, I got signed with Gates Ave to this like random, um, I guess it was like a Christian label because the music was like Christian influenced and faith-based or whatever. So we went on tour with, like, Thousand Foot Crutch at the time,
Oh
and we
my.
went on tour with if you
Wow.
know that name.
Oh, yeah.
I'm in
Oh,
touch
yeah.
with some of those guys still,
Really?
Trevor McNevin, and, we have, like, a mutual trauma
They were some of the
experience.
best live performances, honestly, I think, that I'd seen at, like, festivals,
Oh,
because I only
yeah,
ever saw
yeah,
those
they're
bands at
great.
the Christian rock festivals. They were pretty great live, yeah.
Yeah, but
That's cool.
then, like, other like, it's a whole other world, like, the Christian music world is, like, a whole other world, but we did that for a little bit, and then it just kind of, like, petered out, and, like, but booking my own shows and things like that, I guess that happened after I was in, like, another project that I started, and I got, like, funding through friends, and I, like, went out to Calgary to record it. It was called L, and it was, like that was kind of more, like, my like experience that enlightened me to how crazy the music industry can be. And like it was just such a lesson in like using caution, and like there was just so much about that project that was traumatizing that made me want to quit. And then I met Drew through that season of just like we became friends, and he was had
Mhm.
another project called McLean, and we were both like chatting about music, and he would send me bands that he thought I would like, and he was kind of my like window into. And same with some of these other people, like I discovered Radiohead at that time. I was like never heard of Radiohead, and then I was like, holy crap, this is insanely good. Like it just like my openness to the sort of when I was starting to make my own project now, aside from like a Christian music kind of project, I was just like, I just want to make music that makes me talk about like my life and yeah, my challenges and all of the things. And yeah, then then Andrew would just send me, you know, just different bands that he thought I would like, and like Fleet Foxes and like just indie bands. And then I went to Coachella that during that time, and that just like rocked my world. Actually, this is a good story. I thought I could buy a ticket at the door. So when I got to Coachella, I was like, "Hey, where's the line? I'm gonna buy my ticket." And my friends that were there with me, they're like, "You can't just buy a ticket. You have to like buy it like months in advance." So I ended up like running through security and, like, sneaking in,
Oh my goodness.
and then another day, like, because there was 3 of the days, and the 2nd day, I jumped the fence with some random guy, and then it was so amazing, though, like, thinking back to it, I just had no clue,
Well, the
and
timing
just,
of it,
like,
because Coachella is happening, bro, it just happened.
I
And I
know, it's
just
perfect
saw like
timing, yeah.
TikToks of people taking these huge risks trying to jump the barriers too. So that's
Well,
funny that you
now
say
they would
that. I
have
have this
gotten
picture in my mind now.
they would have gotten way better with that security because it wasn't that hard, actually. Um But no, and I just think it's kind of an amazing thing, like, I almost I kind of grieve it, but I'm almost, like, thankful for it too because I was so, like, in the dark about how cool, how wide the genres were, how big the world was, I guess. Like, I
Yeah.
didn't really travel till I was, like, 17, you know? When I think about that now, it's like my son has been on like 27 flights and he's 2 and a
Yeah.
half years old. Like it's like
Wow.
actually crazy. So like, yeah.
Okay, I have
Um
to ask you. I have to ask you. Like sometimes I think, especially in indie rock, like everybody could have a conversation with each other about when they discovered Radiohead as like a shared like pillar. It feels like.
mhm.
But my mind immediately thinks like, okay, you grew up in the Christian music scene and aspiring of Christian rock and what was big. That means you would have discovered Delirious long before you discovered Radiohead, which is
Oh, like I know
which be
all of those.
technically the other way around because everybody thinks Delirious was like the Radiohead of
Mhm.
Christian music, but you discovered it in the other direction, probably,
Yeah.
which I find interesting.
Yeah.
Um,
Delirious is great.
they were a really good band.
Mhm.
Um, so I had read an article earlier. I think it was from 2022, maybe. And when you were talking about the album, I think at that time, an article with both you and Drew, and you had sort of talked about this like early phase of your life. I think you were just talking, they were asking you about how you guys met and the backstory between your relationship and stuff. But you had sort of indicated in there that, and you sort of reflected it earlier when you just were talking about the L project and going to Calgary to record and getting exposed to the industry and that article used the word jaded, which I found interesting because I almost everybody becomes jaded in the music business. I think one of the biggest things I've noticed is, well, just everybody does. And you know, the amount of people who seem to run the business that are sometimes the most jaded, which was, I think, a big eye opener to me when I was younger and pursuing things more. Um, but to have sort of that level of experience before you even got to do a project that really took off, that can be like a really, feels to me like that would be a real difficult like turning point. I'm curious, what was the thing that sort of like swung it back for you? Was it specifically the music you were making when you started making music with Drew? Were there other experiences that maybe sort of turned that around for you? Or I can leave it open to maybe you've just stayed jaded about the music industry the whole time. But I don't think you could survive as successfully as you have if you had. So I'm just curious what how that maybe turned for you.
Well, my mind went to, like, Drew and I, like, I always really did love music and wanted to make it. I just worked with some really horrible, like, one specifically horrible, person that really was, like, in it to take advantage of, like, me financially and my
Mm,
friends, and, like, he was just a bad person and intentionally evil, like, I think, but, so that was, like, an experience that, like, really wounded me, like, truly, um, and, like, they considered them friends and stuff too, so it's like, I think that's part of why people get so sad is because like, friendships get lost and, like, it
yeah.
feels like you're making something for good reasons, and, it's just a tough thing because it's so emotional, music, and, like, it's very rarely, just about making something. You're in it for with your heart. But, I think Drew was, like, a huge catalyst to just being like, "Let's just make it for fun." He knew good people to work with too. So, like, half the battle was, like, I would be, like, so excited about this song, and then I would hear it, like, recorded, and it would sound like garbage. Like, I would be like, "This, like, sucks." Like, you need to know the right people to record with and work with, or
Yeah.
else you're gonna just, like, pay money for something that no one's gonna like, you know? You don't even like it. So I think that was what was really tough. So when I started with Gates Out or with Dear Rouge with Drew, the things that we were making sounded great and I liked them. And then so that was like my first experience of like, oh, this is fun. Like this music sounds fun. And then like the other thing is he like, yeah, he just was like the intention of making Dear Rouge the start of it was just for to enjoy it. And like I don't think I really had ever had that like experience of like I'm just gonna do it for fun. Like I
Mm,
always had this like road of like I will do this as my life, as my career. And I never really considered it just being for the enjoyment of it, which is really kind of interesting. So I think that like organic sense of like I'm making something that I think is enjoyable with someone I like that's helping me like sort of heal. That was like the beginning of Dear Rouge. So I think just like the turning point in the jadedness was maybe or just like I don't even think I think that I would say that jaded is a better word for me now. I don't think I'm fully jaded. I just think I'm like aware and it's like a lot of it is kind of yucky and it's like kind of high school in some ways. But I think that it's just like
mm.
if you love music, you will not stop making it. It's just a part of your identity. It's like just a part of who you are. Even if I couldn't sing, I think I'd be making like just ethereal music motivated, like just using any part of myself to create something that I thought was beautiful. Um, yeah, I could answer this question in so many ways, but I guess I'll just say like I don't think that I was jaded at the time. I think I was just in pain. Like I think I was just hurt by like
Yeah.
the dream being so, like, I was too naive for it, and I was just, like, trusted somebody that was, like, out to get me, like, was actually a wolf in sheep's clothing,
Yeah.
and I didn't have the sense enough to, like, stop that, or, like, turn the other way for because I was so wanting that so badly, and some of these things that I just needed to learn, I think,
Yeah, but a
but
lot of people go through that, right?
yeah, and I think it's a part of,
Sadly.
like, the lesson of it, and some people do quit, and some people don't get the chance to do it again, but I think that, like I think my story is a bit of a miracle, and I think that Drew just meeting him was, like, such a part to play in all of, like, my destiny and my future was just,
Mhm.
like, being, like, woven into the whole greater story of, like I think my greater message in my life has been, like, don't stop. If you have a dream like, one of the big questions I ask people is, like, "What would you do if money wasn't, like, a part of the story?" Like, at least give a day of the week to the thing that you love. Like, at least, like, believe in yourself, enough to, like, just don't stop it completely. That kinda stuff. I feel like you have to earn it a bit, so yeah.
Yeah, that one comes up a lot. Like, I talk about this with a lot of people, obviously,
Mhm.
and the and I you get to hear both sides of that coin a lot, right? Which is a
Mhm.
lot of people, when they hear somebody who's had success say that, I think there's an immediate, "Well, that's easy for them to say," versus
Mhm.
talking to the people who, a lot of people try this thing, right? And most people don't succeed. And succeed, I have to air quotes too, because you would know as well or better than anybody that all the perception based success, when we talk about what if money wasn't a question, it doesn't translate the way everybody maybe thinks that it translates to that part
Mm.
of success either. Anyhow, but
Mhm. Yeah, right.
um, okay, before I move on, I just got to ask you because you used the word grieve a couple of times about a certain era of your life, and I'm just curious a little more what you meant
Oh,
by
I
that
I
when
was
you were
talking
talking
yeah, I
about
was
it.
talking about, like, music not being a part as much of my upbringing that I wanted it to be, and I had to,
Mm,
like, be sad about that and let go of that a little bit because I think there's just, like, theologies that were incorrect and things that I was taught that and my family was taught that just, like, robbed from us, and I
mm,
think part of that was just, like, you can't like, a certain art is not of God or whatever,
yeah,
and I think that's, like, just totally false now, and I think that, like, even my dad and I, like, now we'll go to, like, a record shop and you're like, "Oh, this band, like, this band's amazing, and I love we gotta buy this record and we gotta listen to it at your house," or whatever, like, which one did we do that to recently? Steve Miller Band, and we put it on and we were like, "This is so good." Like, both of us were just like, "Yeah." And, like, that's sad to me, like, that we're doing that now. I mean, it's not sad because 'cause we're doing it, but I think that's something you should do when you're, like, a little teenager, and you're like, now these
yeah,
records mean so much to you into your later life. I
yeah,
think that, there's probably a lot of people like me that need to, like, just be sad about that and now, like, just go deep dive and there's pros and cons to everything in life. Like, now I feel like my discovering is, like now it's a part of my, like, intention to, like, discover. I don't feel stuck in my music, discovery because maybe because I wasn't raised on these, like, 10 albums?
yeah, yeah.
But,
That makes a lot of sense.
but I do think it's important to be like, "That sucked," that I didn't get to go to, like, museums and see cultural things that are relevant to like, the greater human story because I thought they were sin, like, that sucks? And I think that
Yeah,
I personally still have really deep faith, and I love my faith so much, like, my Christian faith, but it's also really disappointing me these days, well, these days and back then too. There's so much about religion that can be really, really sour and evil. So,
yeah,
I just like try to fight for the good side of it and, like, yeah. So anyways, all that stuff I
yeah.
think is important to hear, especially if you grew up the way that we did?
Yeah, I love that you're willing to talk about it. I think some people, I mean, I've known a lot of people with the same backstory, and some of them want to keep it pretty quiet. They,
I mean,
and
yeah,
I
I
just think
and
maybe they haven't, like you said, they haven't gone back and actually either grieved it or dealt with it or sort of accepted those things. It's like they just want to bury it and put it behind them and live a different life.
for
So,
me, for a while, it was like, it's just not cool. Like, it's not cool to like have been raised like listening to like Avalon
mhm.
or like, you know, um,
Yeah,
Switchfoot was cool though. Like some of these bands that you're like, oh, but this one
that's
band
true.
that kind of crossed over. But
Yeah,
but now I feel like I have a good array of music tastes and I get to draw from so much of my experiences now that I can't even believe how far I've come in the 15 years
mm,
of learning and growing. And I don't think we give ourselves enough credit for the growth that we've done.
mm, that's a good
So
point. Um, well, I appreciate you telling me about that. It's a really good point, and I think a lot of people need to be able to hear that. I mean, even just hearing people talk, well, we know this. It gives us permission sometimes when we hear somebody else talking about it that we can identify with. So I think it's always important
mm,
to have those
yeah.
conversations. Um, so obviously, Dear Rouge did very well for, like it got you the career in music that you said you've had for 15 plus years now. A lot of that, like right off the bat, interesting to me. Like a lot of people, there's a conversation on the side about like how successful radio will continue to be. But there's this whole like middle layer of this like rock radio or the alt rock and radio in Canada that you know, has lived from the mid 2000s till now, and going back to the place that bands like Metric had in that it felt like you guys, and um I think the same time as you guys, like Mother and July Talk and these bands that all sort of like stepped in and just kind of filled up that space for like quite a while. And then now I see some newer bands, like some friends of mine's like the Royal Foundry,
Mhm.
also the same church background actually, but
Mm.
and then Hotel Mira and Fake Shark and some of these guys, all sort of jumping in this same space, which I think is really cool and continues to exist. So in that whole rise of your career in Dear Rouge, I'm wondering, I guess my question for you about that era is like, was there a point for you? Where was the point when you felt like, what's the best word? I'll just use it, like safe, secure. Like, was there ever a
Mhm.
point of security? I think a lot of people wonder, like, when do I know
Mm.
I've made it? I think people always want to ask bands who look, again, perception based success, but um, the fact that you're getting to do this career in the very typical way, I don't think it's the same for artists. So I'm just curious, when, with the trajectory you had in trying to chase this thing that you wanted, and then those things start happening for you with Dear Rouge, was there a point when you ever kind of landed where you were like, I think this is locked in now?
I don't know. I think the most secure I felt was probably after like Black to Gold and we were like signed with Universal Canada and we were like decided to like live in New York for a year. It was probably 2016 where I was like living like there I didn't have many cares, you know. I was like I was ready to like take over the world. I thought like we just thought, you know, once you see like a certain level of success, I think you just keep reaching for another level of
Hmm.
it. I don't know if you ever do feel completely, like, safe in it, but I do feel like now I've had, like, a career in music for sure. I can say that's been my main career in music. I guess, like, I would answer it like that. The job that I've known since I married Drew, especially because that's all we've ever done is music. So, I don't know about safety, though. I feel like there's always a sense of, like, it's gonna get sort of taken from you at any point because it's so competitive. But I think we were lucky to be in the, like, analog digital land where, like, social media hadn't completely taken over yet. And so we still had, like I guess we could sort of we built our audience, like, in a traditional sense, as you say, and I think that
Hmm.
lasts, like, longer than, like, what's happening now. I think that it's, like, one and done kind of feeling unless you're, like, a very big star. I think it's, like, harder to stick around unless you've built it traditionally. I know, it's just a very weird time, like, I'm trying to make sense of it, so but I think that, like, our live touring world has been so good to us, and I always wanna get back to that because I feel like it's where you get to, like, have that human interaction and, like,
Hmm.
we're so like, we love being that, like, live band that you can trust to have a good time, you know, and yeah,
Hmm.
I think that I do feel secure in what I'm doing. It's just, like, always evolving, and I think now the game or the idea is, like, how can we stay in the conversation even? Like, that's, like, the big thing for every band, I think now.
Yeah, the attention game, I mean, which is essentially the
Mhm.
word for social media marketing, is attention
Mhm.
marketing so much.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it's really taken over. You're completely correct. And that's the thing that it's got to be so hard depending on your personality type, right? Like the way people deal with this looming, but the other shoe's gonna drop. Somebody's gonna take this away from me someday. I mean,
Mhm.
depending on your, personality types, like that can be extremely anxiety producing,
Yeah,
right?
and I think that, like, you can really you need to find, like, ways to just trust the process and trust yourself and, like, also here like, the other thing I think about often is, like, no one can, stop you from creating. It's like it's a job thing that you're talking about, you know? It's like a money thing you're talking about at the end of the day. Because like, can I do this full
Yep.
time? That's what I wanna
Yep.
know. And, I think that's just where you have to be, like, adaptable and, but it is I would say for a lot of people, though, it's like, "What am I gonna do if this is all that I'm good at?" You know?
Yeah, well, you hear that a lot too. I've heard, like, the expression, like, "I don't know what else I would do because this is the only thing I know how to do,"
Mhm.
supposedly, right? And the money thing, right, is such a sliding scale because I remember using that phrase a lot of times, like, my dream would be if I could just pay the bills with this and not have to do
Mhm.
something else.
Yeah,
Like, that
yeah.
seemed to be this baseline, right? But then I get to as far down the road as I am now, and I'm like, the number of my friends who have paid the bills one way or the other. Like, I got friends who are, like, traveling troubadours, and they play all over the world like little folks, just them and their acoustic, 300 days a year. Like,
Wow.
these guys will never have RSPs, right? Like, so, it's one thing to say, "Yeah, I could pay the bills," and then you all of a sudden start to grow up a little more and realize life's even bigger. You have children or you wanna have children. That I'm sure I can ask you about that, how that changes everything about your outlook and perspective as well, right? About, where that the baseline's gonna move, I guess, is what I'm really getting at
Yeah.
as you grow up.
100%.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, you learn to kind of, like the things you thought were cool just start changing, and, yeah, you definitely evolve, and it's just, like, some of the things I just find funny now. I'm just like, "What are we" like, I don't know. It's a lot of silliness. It's a lot of fluff, and, but it's, like, shiny, so that's, like, entertainment, you know? So
exactly.
there's that.
Yeah.
Uh
Okay, so I wanna ask you a number of questions about Lark and your transition to this kind of a project and what you put out and where it sort of evolved from. I think what's interesting about it to me on the outside is that it just really it captures, like, a number of, like, differences, right? Like, I'll even start from here. Like, you sort of alluded to it, but you're like, Dear Rouge and your marriage are completely intertwined with one another,
Mhm.
which is a
Yeah.
unique identity to have as a couple, right? When you're trying to find like, every couple in the world tries to find their identity of who they are together. Um so going off and starting something by yourself again that far down the road, what is that experience like? Does it feel easy? Does it feel like you have to be extra intentional to try to make it happen? Did it feel foreign to you again, or was there none of that in place? I'm curious about what that felt like to start doing something on your own.
I was, like, really ready to just try something new, and my artistic nature is just, like, ever like, just such a curious person, and working with Drew is an amazing thing, like, we've loved it, and it's Dear Rouge is not going away, like, we're writing a record right now, we're doing, like, so much with that still. We're growing and evolving that, but I think this was just, like, a very cool, well, I see Lark as being, like, a long-term plan. I love sitting at a piano and just playing music and singing, and, like, just the idea that I could just do that. I could just go to somebody's house and play a set. I could go do this magical set in the forest, I could expand this into so many different things. Like, I love painting, I love that kinda stuff. I love, creative directing, I love creating worlds, I love fantasy, I love all these things. So I was like, Dear Rouge is a very specific vein. It's like alternative. It's kind of like UK inspired. It's like kind of grungy, but it's also like epic. Like there's only so much you can do with that creatively. You can do a lot because we didn't put it in like a very specific like it's like alternative pop. So there's like a lot of things that Dear Rouge has done and like
Mhm,
messing with that. But I just think it was, like, something that I was making that I just felt like needed to be told more, even, like, the story of, like, our journey to familyhood, and I just, like, used it as a grief healing project that I ended up, like, working with a poet that I love, and I worked with, like, just I got to, like, expand my, like, my tool belt, my horizons, and And I was just like, "This is super fun." Like, all of the things that I learned from Dear Rouge, I can implement into this, and it can just be like its own life force, its own egg in another basket, and, I don't think it take has taken away from anything, actually. I think it's made me more motivated in Dear Rouge as well, because it's just like, I get to do this thing I'm very thankful for, but Lark has been, like, a really nice breath of fresh air of also, like, proving to myself a lot, like, I made it out of, like, another need to heal through music, and it's just been a magical experience for the most part.
Hmm. I know I had read that the last album for Dear Rouge in 2024, a lot of you had talked about a lot of thematically was you dealing with um, infertility issues leading up to the birth of your son. So the writing of the music started, like what became Lark was sort of a part of that same era. Is that the
Yeah,
correct
well,
assumption?
Lark started I started writing just random piano pieces and music during, like, COVID and during that same era, so that was all kind of
Okay.
connected. It was just, like, this big wave of, like, sadness, you know? It was just
Yeah.
all really, really unknown and really hard and really lonely and really, like, going from, like, venues and people and fun and, like, dreaming to, like, nothingness, you know? Like, like, the world is ending and everything
Yeah.
sucks. Like, it was just really, really dark for, like, somebody like I'm just always, like, silver lining type person, but but it was just, like, really hard to find it. And so, like, I just
Hmm.
like music is such a good friend, and, like, you just definitely process through it. Any musician would say that actually, so it's not
Yeah.
surprising.
And I mean, as you kind of already identified, like the nature of Dear Rouge, and pop, you know what I mean, in general, that can create such. I guess I'm just thinking when you experience a lot of like dark feelings, a lot of like unanswerable emptiness, it really in this business, I think, gets escalated, like gets overblown with the fact that you're going between things that are so performative with very little like substance to it, I guess you could say, to dealing with like it's not the word isn't imposter syndrome, almost like hypocrisy feeling I've talked to some people about, when they, I'm up there, I'm performing, I'm looking like I'm happy, I'm having the best time of my life, I'm still a rock star, but people don't know I'm going through these things. It can become a pretty wide gap in someone's life, which is hard to deal with. Um, but writing about it is extremely vulnerable. And then sharing that music, I think, is maybe one of the most vulnerable things I've known about in my human experience so far. Was that easy to do, or was that a hard choice to make about bringing that kind of music out and decide you're going to do something with it?
I think it was hard, but I also think it was, like, necessary. Like, I think there's some things in your life that you're just like, I kind of, like, need this hard, though. Like, it's better than not sharing it. Like, it
Mm,
really is. Like, that's, like, the 6th stage of grief is, like, sharing it and being a part of the community with it and giving back with it. Like, that's how you know you're healed, I think. So it just feels like I'm, like, in such a good spot to be like, this is a part of that, that step to, like, towards feeling whole, in whatever sense that means, to me. And
mhm,
and for others, though, now I do feel like a sense of, like, this is gonna be helpful to others, and, like, that makes me excited. Like, that gives me a lot of motivation,
mm,
but it's also very specific to, like, specific place. So I say no to a lot of things with Lark. I'm like, "The venue's just weird, like, it won't work." Like, I've said no to, quite a few things now. Like, I don't want it to be it's not like building a traditional career as we've been talking about. It's just not the same. It's like a spiritual experience, and it's like, there's a lot of tears, there's a lot of beautiful it's just beautiful, so, like, I'm trying for, like, theaters and black box type scenarios where it can be, like, a really controlled scenario and, like, really, really intentional,
yeah, yeah.
and it's been awesome.
You want to curate the whole experience for people,
Yeah.
as opposed to typical quote unquote touring, where especially if you're like, it's not like you're starting over, but it probably has felt in some ways like the starting over because you're
Yeah.
embryonic and having to grow a thing again. And the touring life or just playing shows, you end up being beheld to the venue. You get booked in, somebody else's sound guy who doesn't understand you possibly, like all these different factors, which I'm sure, yeah,
I just
as you
don't,
just described, like, why would you subject yourself to that
yeah,
if
100%.
it's gonna
I just
destroy it?
I exactly. I just say, "No, it's not gonna work." Like, I just every show I've had, like, the team that I really knew could make it happen and stuff,
Yeah,
so and, like, knowing as much as I know now with music and what I have learned, like, I've put it into this, so I
yeah,
know I just, like, know when it's just not gonna fly, so that's been, like, kinda cool to be like, "This isn't gonna be a cool experience for anybody. No one's gonna, like,
yeah,
enjoy this, and no one's gonna make money, so, like, we shouldn't do that."
yeah.
But, like, these are all
Well,
the things that you learn as you go, and you just kind of, like but so far, every show I've done with Lark, I've been like, "That was amazing and 100% worth
mm,
it," and, like, so that's just how I'm taking my life right now in that regard is just, like just the intention that I can have right now is very cool
yeah.
is what and I think is what Dear Rouge has afforded me is that ability to say, like, "I want that," or "I don't want that," and that's really meaningful, and I'm very, very thankful for that, so
Yeah, that's really bold, I was gonna say, but it's also really mature, right? I think that obviously shows choices of somebody who understands how every aspect, um, of this job works and about how music, both presentation and connection, and then value on the other side of it, even to be able to have the insight to know how that works is obviously, yeah, an extremely mature choice and direction to take it. Um,
Mm.
so we had talked a little bit about influences at the start, right? And I think we all sort of know that when you're starting out in music and you have this big dream, like those things are massively a part of how you make music, how you write music. You're trying to really just learn how to recreate the things that inspired you, right? And you kind of want to just be part of this fabric of this whole music community so bad. But I've also talked to a lot of people that, when they get 10, 15, 20 years down the road and then the influences seem to be less a part of the songwriting and they're literally just writing from they've learned how to just sort of write from their own heart and whatever mixes in there is in there about how things came out. So I'm curious in a shift, for lack of a better term, as drastic a shift as Lark is from Dear Rouge stylistically, were there were there influences present that you sort of wanted to take in a direction, or was it just your own personal musical evolution? Like when you sat down on a piano, this is just what came out.
I think it was mostly that, but I grew up, like I learned Royal Conservatory, I, like, didn't go super far, but I went enough to, like to know, like, decent I think I got to grade 8. So, like,
Hmm.
I got my old books out and I was playing those, and that was inspiring me, but I also, like I love just, like I love do you know Olafur Arnalds? He's, like, an
Yeah,
Icelandic
yeah,
like,
very much.
we listen to a lot of that kinda stuff. There's this artist named Bonobo. I think he's either from the UK or he's American, I don't know, either I don't know, but he's amazing, and, like, we do listen to a lot of, just to calm us, we listen to a lot of stuff like that. And so that was kind of there, but I there's this piano artist named Yo Beving that, like, is amazing, and, like, I just was like, piano is just such a beautiful instrument, and it was just kind of organically happened, and who doesn't, like, love strings, and who doesn't love, like when you, like,
Yeah,
hear a Billie Eilish record too, you're like, her songs are gorgeous, like, if you hear all the parts and all the melodies and things, like, that kinda stuff was influencing me, and, like so I feel like I was just creating a sound that sort of, like, organically was coming out, and
yeah,
then, like, finding those influences as I was recording it, and,
yeah,
um but yeah, so the Lark project is lush, and it's beautiful. It's got lots of arrangements, but then it comes back to nothing. There's lots of, like, building, there's lots of, like, ambient parts, but it's mostly just, like, pretty melancholy piano-based stuff, so it's like yeah, and it's all about the words and the vocals and, like, the like space. So
Yeah, very much the space. It made me think of there's another, oh shoot, what was the name? I don't know how to pronounce it right. It's like Lux or I know Luchs. It's in all caps. This artist,
okay.
who I think I've probably found it's similar around time as Oliver Arnold. So,
Oh yeah.
anyhow, one thing I was curious about. So musically, definitely, there's like a shift. Stylistically, you were going to do something different than that. Um, I find what's interesting too is your voice is different a little. Like the stylistic phrasing things. Like your rock voice is like probably one of the best like rock voices we've had in Canada in a very long
Oh,
time.
that's nice.
Like,
Thank
well,
you.
I listen to a lot. Like I listen to a lot of like Broods, Fantagram, Yeah Yeah
Yeah.
Yeahs, The Kills,
Yeah.
and sometimes I would sit and listen on like Sonic, alt radio in Edmonton, and I don't think most of the people here even know like the reference to me of where you fit in and belonged with, like in that
Oh,
regard, right? Which I think is like
yeah.
pretty incredible
Thank
control.
you.
And then I was listening to Lark, and I'm obviously hearing a lot more softer,
Mhm.
more drawn out phrasing, even vibrato, which didn't almost appear ever in Dear Rouge songs type thing. So I'm just sort of curious about how somebody, as strong a vocalist is, you like how you made those choices, how conscious those choices were, about
Yeah,
how
I
you
think like
were singing.
yeah, like well, there's so many things you need to know about like studio stuff to like kind of understand that too, because there's different types of mics and that get out different
Yeah.
tones from voices. And if you're singing super softly, then you end up like with a lot of compression and different things on a microphone. And then the way that they mix it in, it's like very different from like a rock thing where you're like belting and there's also compression on that, but there's also like other ways that you vocally produce something that you hear certain tones and certain elements of voices, and then they
Hmm.
also like, you can put all kinds of like different like tones, like different ways that you can do like 3 vocals on top of each other to make your voice sound like richer and deeper, and like there's just so many tricks you can just do all kinds of things and it's endless. So I think with Lark, it was just like this is just like really raw and meant to be like emotional. And so that's just kind of how I took it when I performed it. So
Mm,
and then how they mix it and how they do that stuff is very much how I sing, but I don't get those opportunities as much with Dear Rouge because the songs are so, like, in your face.
yeah,
And
yeah.
it's all really fun, like, I love trying it all, I love doing it all, so it's like I get to expand and grow.
Yeah, it's definitely cool to have an opportunity to do something that is a whole nother like, to move into a whole nother room, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
With your
yeah,
voice, like, that way.
yeah,
Um, okay, so the last thing I just wanna ask about, because I did read about and you referenced it earlier, um, writing songs with the poet, that was a big
mhm,
influence, which I think is it's just thematically so in step with everything that you've talked about with your Lark project and where
mhm,
you've kind of gone with that. Um, what's interesting is when I was listening through, well, I'll back up for a second actually. So the first song I heard, oh shit, I'm terrible with remembering things. What was the first single you released with words?
like Devastation's
That
Bliss?
one, yeah. So that one I was gonna mention because it sounded, out of all the songs, closer to your Dear Rouge sort of tone and phrasing, at least the
Mhm,
phrasing, I think, a bit.
okay.
But then I remember listening through and I got to First Kiss, and so that one, I immediately got caught by the lyrics, and I don't get caught by lyrics very often,
Mm,
despite that I listen to them so
mhm,
intensely, but I feel like it takes something for something to really catch me, and there was a real clear sense of like, "Oh, this is telling a story inside of the story right now."
mhm.
Um, and it wasn't until afterwards that I found out you co-wrote that with, with the poet. So just wondering about that experience and whether that type of thing takes a little longer to work it out or if it's easier.
It's cool that you bring up the phrasing because I think that, like, phrasing is something that, like, poetry, like, when we went back and forth writing that song, it's like he would send me stuff, and I would be like, "This doesn't work within, like, how I would sing it," so I'd have to, like, switch up how I would sing it to, like, get fitted into how it would flow with
Mm,
the music and stuff, so
mhm.
I think some of that maybe has been influenced by, like, collaborating with him on lyrics and yeah, it's easier, I think, when you're working with somebody as amazing as Derek C. Brown, like, he's such an amazing poet, like, his word usage, his humor, like, he's just really talented, so it's easy to be like, "Yeah, that's really cool." Like, there's a line in that song, like, it's about all about a first and last kiss, and, one of the last lines of it is, "And the last kiss is always on a couch you never lay on again," and I was like, "Oh, that's such a cool thought," like,
Okay.
he wrote that, sent that to me, and I was like, "Oh, that's so good." Like, people throw out furniture based on memories. I'm like, "That's really rad." So
Yeah, so that's the one that jumped out at me too, right? Like, and I know
mhm.
you're never supposed to ask somebody what it means to them or an artist because they're like they
It's
always
just saying
deflect.
goodbye.
But
Yeah, no.
but it almost felt to me like you know how there's this sort of typical thing in a relationship when you're dating and like the couch is where you like make out most of the time when you're
Yep.
dating for a long time and then at some point it transitions to a more serious relationship and then everything goes to the bedroom maybe. And it just sort of just right off the bat, I was like, I'm pretty sure that's not what they meant, but I was just struck by the fact, like, I interpreted it a very
That's
literal
cool.
way right off the bat,
Yeah,
and then I just thought yeah, it just felt like that's why I had to go back and listen to the whole song right away, all the
that's
way through
great.
again to try to get a sense, so I was wondering, like, is writing with Derek, like, is this something you're gonna try to continue to do? Do you have the opportunity or the
Yeah,
desire to
he's
do more of?
amazing, and yes, definitely I love collaborating. I with Lark, I always wanna make sure that it's it's me and, like, another
Yeah.
person is sharing in that, and I'm involving them in what I would like to do, and that's, like, something that I've been, like, really adamant about. He's super great, like, he's so respectful and wants to, like, do what he's a great person to work with, and
Mm,
yeah, and he asks a good questions and I can take it or leave whatever I want, and I love that, and that's just like a good collaborator in general,
yeah,
and, yeah, it's amazing. I couldn't have, like, gotten to this level of awesome without him, so it's definitely, something I wanna, like, always explore when you have, like, relationships like that produce really cool things. Yeah, you have to, like, be
yeah.
treasure them, you know?
So why use the moniker Lark and not just go as Danielle McTaggart after sort of building a career and reputation at that point?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the producer asked me that too. I was like, it's just not as dreamlike. I feel like Lark is kind of a character and I like that thought. And it's not like people can't find out that that it's me. So I just
Yeah.
was like, I don't think it's gonna be that big of a deal. And also like my name's just doesn't sound like it's a nice name, but it just doesn't sound like what I'm making. So I was like, I just want to
Oh,
switch.
that's totally fair. That's totally fair.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
So I did.
that's cool. Well, I appreciate your time very much and chatting with me a little bit about your journey with things. I think Yeah, I think I've been especially interested just in the choices and the opportunities, but, especially fascinated, I think, with just some of the things that you talked about, and I remember reading somewhere that with all the things you've gone through that you'd have an interest in, being able to teach the next generation, so to speak, a little bit, which I think even after being able to talk with you I don't know where those opportunities are in Canada. I've, like, been searching for them more ever since my time with Alberta Music and watching a development program like Peak and other ones that
Mhm.
I've been involved with. There's no school for this. There's no university degree really for
Mhm.
a career in music, like you said, like you learned a very productive way through timing in Canada of being able to get on the road and how to actually build connection with the audience that lasts. I'd love if there were more opportunities in Canada, and I think you would be, especially after talking with you, a great person to be involved in teaching new artists and emerging aspiring artists all these different facets of things they need to learn and understand, and how to stick up for themselves in the shitty moments, and how to make bold choices. So
Oh, thank
hopefully
you.
something like that comes around. That'd be great. But yeah, thank
Thanks,
you so
Brian.
much. Appreciate the time, and wish
Yeah.
you all the best, and hope to see you guys on the road again maybe sometime soon.
That'd be awesome. Thanks
Yeah,
for having me.
cool. Thank you.
Hey, I'm Alexi. Stick around for post fame with me and my dad.
Welcome to episode 42.
You're welcome.
I ruined it for you.
Welcome
I
to
ruined it.
episode 42. How are you doing?
Yeah. Well, you just botched it. You're supposed to say it's
Oh.
post fame with Alexi. If you're
welcome.
gonna throw
Sorry,
it, you gotta
let
throw
me
it.
restart. Okay.
Okay.
And welcome to Post Fame with Alexi. It's episode 42. How are we feeling today?
Okay. We're feeling. I don't know. Like that sounds like it's a children's episode start.
Manuel, Dad.
Yeah, I know. You
Okay.
gotta work on that, but not now during exam season.
Yeah.
Thanks for the effort, though.
Thank you.
Great.
Yeah. Anyways, let's move on. So how did you like this episode?
Okay, that's just not the way we start these things. Okay, before we launch into the episode chat, you sent me a thing and I passed it on to Josh from Hot
Did you?
Takes. I just want to do a little update because
You left me unopened. I didn't know that you did that.
so it was about, in our Hot Takes special episode with Josh, we got into the like splicing down of all of the
Genres?
subgenres in Spotify and the meaning and reason behind it and all that kind of stuff. And so you had sent me a message, new sort of introduction of some new subgenres. One of them being art rock.
Art rock. So did you see my follow-up text?
No, I don't read
Oh, you
everything.
hate me,
No, I
whatever.
don't know that.
No, I said, okay, yeah, so I was listening to a playlist. Because sometimes Spotify will like generate a playlist for you with like, whatever fun title.
Yeah.
And then it'll list below it in very small print, also listen to, and then a bunch of the subgenres that they think are like in that playlist.
Yeah.
And so it had made me this really, I don't know, it was a good one. Stuff I've been listening to lately. And then it was like also see da 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 and then art rock. And I was like, that's a new one for me. So clicked it, and it was like a lot of the people we'd been talking about on Hot Takes with Josh, and it was like Cameron Winter, Geese, Racing Mount Pleasant, and then there's some like Radiohead, Pink Floyd, like some of those classics.
Okay.
And I was like, and this was my follow-up text to you. I said, oh, like I know this has apparently been a subgenre of rock music for many years, but
Yeah.
Spotify's putting some wild things in there. Because I went then, because I was like, I feel like this rings a bell. So I did a little Google. And, it has been a thing for many years. And it's like when people take rock as a genre and it's not like what's popular and it's not quite alternative, but they do like, something new with the rock sound. And so I'm like, that makes sense with our conversation. With like, especially with like Geese, we were saying like it's, Josh had said like, well, this isn't rock, so I didn't like it when I first heard it. But when I went and listened with fresh ears, like I do like it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm like, that makes sense though with art rock, because it's like if you just said, oh, this is rock to someone, they'd be like, well, that's not what rock sounds like.
Yeah.
When you throw art on there, as in like, they're experimenting, it's not what's like basically the norm right now for that genre. I was like, this checks out. But then you have like Radiohead and Pink Floyd and stuff on there, which are now kind of like, pretty like classic, I would say. So then I'm like, if art rock is like people doing artistic and different things with what's currently defined as rock, you can't really throw on a span of like 40 or 50 years of music on there necessarily.
Well, I think you can if you know that music
was that at the
was
time.
specifically defining that all through against whatever else it was being lined up against,
I
right? Like,
suppose.
because categorization in its nature is about how we're lining everybody up against each other and saying that they're not all the same. And that's definitely always going to be primarily in like what's currently happening. Then there has to be a little space about how it lines up through history too. And I won't get into it, but I think obviously like there's even a wide level of subjectivity to how you would interpret the word art as it's applied to a genre
Yeah.
of art, but or to rock. But I think that, you saying like why Radiohead or Pink Floyd, I think of like a guy like David Byrne and Talking Heads have been like this through history. I think that this idea that there was this notion through history of art for art's sake. In other words, like real art, or some people would more applaud and elevate art that was made just for the sake of being made by
Mm,
the inspiration
mhm.
of the artist and not caring about if people like it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I think maybe that is a little bit in the mix there about the definition of art rock. I'm suspicious of that, especially when you say who some of these bands are, because like,
Yeah.
Radiohead's sort of attention to detail, to, just like the way we talked about Geese, that talking about Radiohead of like mixing
David Bowie's on
time
there.
time signatures. Well, David Bowie especially, he did
Yeah.
so much thematic stuff. He didn't do it to be on the radio necessarily. You know what I mean? He did it because
No,
he
yeah.
loved mixing performance with sort of themes with the music, and trying new things. He wasn't afraid to do something that might not be commercially successful. So I think that that's
Honestly,
a
it makes
common
sense
thread.
on here now that
Yeah.
I'm really browsing it. And, like,
It'd be fun to
it's
explore, to
interesting too,
dip
because then,
into.
I mean, you go down a rabbit hole, because then, it's like art rock mix, and then, like, all the subgenres that are in, like, the small print underneath are always gonna be there. So
Yeah.
this I found this from it being a small print, but now there's small print under it, and it's indie alternative, proto-punk, don't know what that one is.
Uh,
Proto-punk? I don't know. And then, like, avant-garde. So I'm like, it checks out.
yeah.
I'm okay with it.
Interesting.
Yeah. Um,
Interesting stuff.
the episode.
Just real quick on the end of that. There was also a post by Dan Mangan either today or yesterday. I think I saw it this morning.
Mhm.
And he was just talking from his car about, people trying to make controversy about finding out like how Geese kind of got broken wide open, like their career got broke, you know what I mean, to be
Mhm.
successful, that they were using all these different sort of tools to sort of game the system of like getting exposure and stuff.
Yep.
And his point was that he really admires the band, the music, all that kind of stuff, but his real point was like how incredibly sad it is that a band that's that good has to, in today's
Mm.
industry, resort to those. Like, we shouldn't criticize them because they have to resort to those measures to even try to break through, right? Because
Yeah,
of the
and
way
it
the
worked.
business is. But I think, yeah, I thought that was interesting.
That
Probably could
is
spend a little more time thinking about that too. Anyhow, yeah, Danielle McTaggart
yeah,
episode.
I liked it.
Danielle with Dear Rouge and her solo act Lark. Yeah,
I was listening, and it was just so interesting because there was numerous times where she would start, like, talking about something or bringing something up, and I knew before she was done talking that it was gonna, like, hit home for you. You know what I mean?
because you've got me profiled, so
Yeah,
you
yours
know
profiled
exactly what's like
so
gonna
well.
resonate with me.
Um, yeah, it was just funny because it was, like, one of those episodes where it's like, because sometimes I listen to them
Yeah,
and I feel like I'm listening as, like, someone who's, hopped on Spotify and listened to the episode, like, I don't necessarily know you or
yeah.
know the artist, and then there's some where, like, I just am so pulled out of that because yeah, like, there were so many times where she was speaking and I was like, "Oh, I know this is gonna resonate with you," like, I know the way you were about to respond,
Yeah.
and, like, that's just where my brain jumped, and I was just getting pulled out of being, like, a listener into just being like, "Oh, you're gonna like, XYZ, or you're gonna have something to say about this or that." Like, it was just but it was good, like
You know how I've said multiple times how I love how often it happens that I meet somebody and I'm meeting them like on a screen.
mhm,
And so I'm meeting for the first time to talk about their career or things that we share in common, as well as questions I have,
yeah,
and making them talk about themselves in a way that they've been asked 1,000 times sometimes. And then
yeah,
also hoping to ask in a way that
has
they
never
haven't
been,
been asked,
yeah,
but not get too personal. But in this instance of feeling like here's somebody that like, oh, we could be friends.
mhm,
You know how I thought about it afterwards? You know what version of that is though for me? This is gonna sound a little bit weird, but like if I go back to sort of like high school days where everything's really surfacey, you're not thinking deeply, you're just like reacting to how you feel about things and what draws you to things, you know what I mean? And I'm a 17-year-old boy, 18-year-old boy starting to like see the world a little more clearly. The way that I start being interested in girls might be less about just how they look
Mhm.
or how they dress. And I was very much at 17 or 18, the guy who would go into a room or a party with a lot of energy, right?
Mhm.
And want to sort of be the life of the party and want to connect, with the coolest and the hottest, all these type of people. And I'm trying to make sure this makes sense where I'm going with this. But so what I always ended up doing in finding people that I really would gravitate that I thought were cool, of all the versions of super cool
Mhm.
in a room, I inevitably gravitated to the one that I would end up in a corner having a deep talk with.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? And to me, like, that's how I felt after my conversation with
Yeah.
Danielle was like, she for sure would be the cool one in the room that, regardless of all the versions that might be available to me,
Yeah.
I would always gravitate because I know I'd get into that authentic, good conversation
Yeah.
and it would like leave a mark on me, impact me. So
Yeah.
that's
Well,
how I
even,
felt
like,
about
when
it.
I was listening like, that's funny, when I was listening, it was just, like, some of the topics you guys just naturally got into and, like, could share about, like, both of you. It was, like yeah, kinda, like, same as you just said, like, there's been times that even, like, my work where someone's, like, new or, there's someone who got hired I haven't spent much time around, and then we get chatting, and then all of a sudden, like, a 4-hour shift goes by, and we keep chatting, 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 and then we're sitting at the bar for an hour after our shift getting into this, like, really deep conversation. It's happened, like, a few times with people at work, and then we like, become friends, but I'm like, it felt like that.
Yeah.
Like, it felt like the coworker that, like, I've had, like, small conversations with in, like, passing by, and then, like, this was the conversation that we, like, both sat at the bar and got chatting, and then all of a sudden it's an hour later and, our drinks are finished and we can't, like, go home kinda thing, and I was like, "That's a good it's a good
Yeah.
conversation."
I agree.
The part I pulled out that we can just go over quickly, just because I thought it was interesting, was, like and I'll preface with this, I find it interesting because I feel like it's something we've talked around for so many episodes of the podcast, we've never, like, really addressed it face on,
Okay.
and then she, like, said it, and, like, it was you guys talked about it, and I was just like, "Oh," like, that's a good way to, like, name this thing, but it was when she was saying, like, there's no school for this.
Yep.
Like, we've had so many conversations about, the hustle and, having to do so much of your own work as an artist and, like, how important connections are and how much you, like, benefit from being able to do, like, your own things and, just all of those conversations, but we've never actually been like, "Oh, like, where does all that kinda, like, stem from?"
Yep.
And I think, like, that was a really good way of phrasing it,
Mhm.
and no one's really phrased it that way before because so many people have hopped on and, like, talked about that struggle, especially as, like, a starting artist or, just an artist
Mhm.
who hasn't got that kinda break people talk about necessarily, but,
Yeah.
yeah, it was, like, just something that you, like
Just how many people are starting a career without actually having an education
yeah,
is essentially what
it's just
everybody's
so
doing.
it's like if I was, like
Starting a job that's a
it's
career
like if I
that
graduated
needs
high
yeah.
school and I was like, "I wanna be an Olympic sprinter." You know what I mean? And it was like, "Okay," but there's no, like, university degree for that.
No, you just know that all your friends tell you that you run faster than them.
Yeah, that's what I
And
mean.
so
Everyone's
that's
like,
enough wind in your sails
"You're
to
so
go and do
fast."
it.
It's like, "Okay, you can't get a degree in sprinting." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so you can go to the track and you can show up and you can run every morning and have discipline and, struggle
Yeah.
and email and, do all the things for yourself. But yeah, like there's no online like textbook you can buy. And I just think that's
That's a good point.
a really interesting thing um to like, yeah, I guess like draw the curtain back on a little bit. Um
Yeah.
And I also like their comment about, like I don't know how to phrase this properly, like, because I was writing in my notes and they don't really make a lot of sense if I'm being honest, but,
It's okay.
just, like, when you were talking about mentorship in that sense, because there's no school, so it's like, what is there? And you were kinda saying, like, there's
Yeah.
mentorship and how that's such a huge
Yeah,
piece.
I've talked about that a couple times on shows where it's like it's
Mhm.
really more of an apprenticeship model in the business. Maybe not just with the artists, but especially in the industry side. So maybe that's different than what we're
Yeah.
talking about here.
I mean, I just think that's interesting, especially with, like, peak
Yeah.
performance and, like, all of that. It's just I mean, we've talked about it, like
Well, yeah,
having more
because
things.
yeah, you're right. Yeah, and I thought that she would be somebody just the way she talked. I'm like, you would be good. mentor, I think, in this business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see that.
Yeah, I would still love to see kind of a thing happen on a grander scale.
Yeah.
So I just need to, I almost had it once. I just need to find that million billionaire again who just wants to bankroll the vision and just
Yeah.
build a larger, wider, grander Canadian training ground for
We should
stuff.
just win the lottery, both of us.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Glenn's music school, not school.
Yeah. Something like that.
Something like that.
Maybe I'll tell that. Yeah, never mind. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate the insights. I think that's a good point. It is something we do keep talking around. I hope that I find more sort of different angles and versions of it with different people because it's all these different perspectives that kind of fill in the circle. You know what I mean? And fill in the real
That's what I
story.
really
So
like lately is like, I'll pick out a theme or something that I liked from an episode. And then I'll like, you think about it on like, yeah, a grander scale. And then you're like, oh, on episode whatever, like this person mentioned it, but in this like different way. And then like,
yeah,
they talked about this gap. And then, actually, oh, this person
yeah,
talked about that gap. I really like, I don't know, the more episodes we do,
yeah,
the more the like fill in the blanks get filled in.
yeah. I like it.
Me too.
Yeah, and then when they're all filled in, I'll have to find some new subject matter to pursue,
Um,
some new angles that I need explained.
You should just be one of those podcasters who, like, explores different songs and their backgrounds and stuff at that point.
I think
It's been
song. I
oversaturated.
think a song exploder has been around since like 2014 or
Yeah, they
15.
got that one on you.
But okay,
Okay, I'll see you next week when I'm a free woman.
I'll see you next week, free woman.
Okay,
Okay, good luck. Bye.
bye.
Love yous.